Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you're all well. Part 5 of Princess Diana's death, Inquest of an Inquest, Keith Allen, documentary. The unlawful killing of Princess Diana, I think it was called. So yeah, it's just talking now about the royals' links to the Nazis. That was the former king that abdicated the throne, and the Queen's father, who's the man who took over the throne, and that's ultimately how the Queen become Queen, because this man abdicated the throne. It was nothing to do with the Nazis or Hitler. It was to do with the woman just to his left, of out of screen. She was a divorcee, and he wanted to um, go with this woman. And even in these times, it was kind of a forbidden thing, and he had to abdicate the throne in order to go with this woman. And again, if you watch The Crown on Netflix, which is a dramatisation of the royal family's life, this is covered quite extensively in The Crown about his abdication and his resentment, in a way, for a long time about it, and having to abdicate the throne due to having wanting to be with this woman. But anyway, this is him pictured with Sir Adolf Hitler. Sorry, I don't know where I got that from. Adolf Hitler, and yeah, he was ties to the Nazis. Again, the royal family is German in heritage. Saxe-Coburg-Gotha is the real name, I believe. Changed to Windsor, and around the time of the First World War, Windsor being the name of one of their castles. So yeah, they're actually German, and we fought two world wars against Germany, but the people are German, and here we have a photo of one of them stood next to the commander in chief, Mr. Hitler. You know what I mean? So there's links, there's ties. The actual royal family and the Queen say that that they didn't like you know what I mean. They distanced themselves from all this, but of course they would. Of course they would. So anyhow, this is back to Princess Diana's death. And as this documentary goes and flows, it's very suspicious to me. Very was suspicious at the time. What we're hearing here is very suspicious. And yeah, was she ultimately murdered for, in a way, betraying the royal family and not divorcing Prince Charles? And talking of the royal family, or even the mines, doing the mine crusade that she was on, the personal landmines, pissing off a lot of people in the world and in the armament industry, will never go down well. So, yeah, let's crack on anyway. Let's crack on.
Details of which remain a closely guarded secret.
Were you surprised when you started to find out about, specifically, the relationship with high-ranking Nazis? I mean, Philip's especially.
I was very surprised when I found out about Philip's sisters and their connection to Hitler. The fact that the Queen Mother...
And Philip's sisters were both married, I believe, to Hitler's SS officers. One of his sisters, the photo you've seen there of the Duke of Edinburgh when he was young, he was actually at the funeral of one of his sisters who died in a plane crash. And she, obviously, as I say, she was married to an Hitler's SS officer. And I believe, I'm not sure if he died in the plane crash as well. I think he did. And it was a funeral for his sister and her husband. And that's why he was pictured in Germany with the Nazis. It's covered in The Crown, and again the Crown goes into this. This is why the Crown's good. It covers this in sort of detail. It doesn't so much link the Duke of Edinburgh massively to the Nazis. Again, it was his sister's funeral, but his sister was married to an SSS officer. So you would kind of suggest that there was no sort of rift there, and it is just sort of been covered over for me that these people were in sort of league with the Nazis, or just weren't. And again, there is the old, somebody mentioned in the comments once, none of the Queen's palaces got bombed, really, did they? And my reply to that was, I know it's quite suspicious, because if it was me, I'd blow them up first. You know what I mean? To shatter the minds of the people and the public. You could be destroyed your queen and all her castles. Do you know what I mean? You've got nothing here. We're coming. So it would have been one of the first things I took out. Maybe the Houses of Parliament as well, but no, they didn't. So it kind of makes you wonder. And they have got the ties here to the Nazis, as we've seen, pictures, Duke of Edinburgh, even the former king that have to abdicate, and they are all of German heritage. So it makes you wonder. It does make you wonder.
Her and her husband were inclined more towards Hitler in the beginning.
So why does Britain still tolerate its racist royal family? The only serious argument that defenders of the monarchy can muster nowadays is that the royals are good for tourism, and even that is
Yeah, that's the only answer you get. You get that off the public as well. They're good for tourism, like. So what we keep murderous, villainous people in absolute laps of luxury because it's good for tourism, do we? Is that what we do around here? Okay, that's very moral of us all, isn't it? You know what I mean? Like it's no justification. And as I've said before, we could literally kick all these people out of all these palaces, have these palaces as tourist attractions, and actually could walk around them all, and we maybe make more money and people would still come to England, you know what I mean? And now the Charles, it was all about the Queen, to be honest. Now it's Charles, it's diminished a bit more, you know what I mean? So we could, for my opinion, we could get rid of these people and it wouldn't really affect much. And the reason we don't is because they have actually got power, in my opinion.
suspect.
They're not good for tourism.
That's what they say.
Whenever someone says that, I always think, right, so countries that don't have a royal family then, like Ireland or France or America, no tourists ever go there then. Because tourists would go to the top of the Eiffel Tower, look out and go, oh, I don't know, it's not a bad view, but the lack of a monarch spoils it somehow.
Despite presenting itself as a charming and picturesque relic of the past, the royal family retains a ruthless grip on power in 21st century Britain. It presides over a corrupt and corrosive honours system that keeps tens of thousands of public officials in permanent obedience to the monarchy, all hoping for a knighthood or an OBE in return for a lifetime's loyal service. These are the people who operate Britain's system of government. Judges, coroners, civil servants, police chiefs, permanent private secretaries, members of the secret services, and privy councillors.
When I became a cabinet minister,
Yeah, it's basically how it rolls for me as well. You get that for allegiance to the Queen, doing the Queen's work in a way, and that can be many ways, shapes, and forms. Just keeping the people blind to how it all works is doing the Queen's work. So that's why TV presenters and people like that might get it or sing it. You know what I mean? It's as if like just keep them blind. If you keep them blind, you'll win the awards. And they kind of like award them for the services to the Queen. So that's how I kind of look at it as well. It's not. It's about in keeping the public blind to the power as well. And if you do that well, like if the politicians are doing that well, that the power's the Queen, you get knighted for your services at the end of the day when you've done well for them. You know what I mean? And this is the reward.
I was made a privy councillor. You swear that you will protect the Queen from all foreign prelates, potentates and powers, and you will report on colleagues if they're disloyal and so on. And they read it to me, and I said at the end, I didn't agree. And they said, you don't have to agree. So I said, what do you mean? They said, we've administered the oath. Now, that phrase, the administration of oaths, which people would have heard, means you're injected with the oath. I've been injected with an oath.
The royals don't only use honours and oaths of allegiance to preserve their power. They use intimidation too, as Diana found to her cost. They demand absolute secrecy and loyalty from their subjects, and they stifle dissent.
I think of the establishment, our establishment, as a kind of a legal mafia, whose watchword really is the watchword of the real mafia: omerta, silence.
That's why many people regard them as gangsters. Gangsters in tiaras. And given Prince Philip's Nazi background, is it really so?
Gangster's paradise, yeah. They're not the people that they paint themselves to be. That's what and I don't get it from this. I get it from a long time of looking at these people and looking at the history and who they paint themselves to be in the public and via the media, i.e. the Queen just looking like some nice old woman and you think she's like your grandma. That's the kind of what they were trying to paint the picture of, but it's not necessarily the truth, you know what I mean? And she wasn't always an old woman. That's the beauty of that. So was she was she a dickhead when she was young? Do you know what I mean? And probably is the answer to that. But she's always painted to be nice. But some of her servants and in over the time, oh, this is the thing, you're not allowed to say anything because of all these oaths. And again, as it said there, you don't have to agree. You're injected with the oath. This is the oath. You've took it, like it or not.
Unthinkable that those at the top of the present-day British establishment might go to any lengths to rid themselves of a turbulent princess.
Wix. One platform, any website.
Advert there. It's usually Marvin getting on our Wix, but no, it's the Nazis and the royals today. It's Princess Diana. Hold on, let's turn her up. Lovely voice she has, by the way, isn't she? Lovely soft voice.
Well, anything good I ever did, nobody ever said a thing. Never said well done or was it okay. But if I tripped up, which invariably I did, because I was new at the game, a ton of bricks came down on me.
Still, successful producer, Dodie, wasn't he? I mean, what did he ever produce? Fuck all. That's what he produced. Fuck all. He produced his inquest by dying, you know? Successfully getting himself killed. It's just the typical rich man's son, you know? Talentless son of a rich father, then pisses all his dad's money out the wall. You think of that stereotype? And that's Dodie.
The media called this the Diana inquest, forgetting that it was also an inquest into the death of Dodi Fayed. In life, Dodi was described by the Duke of Edinburgh as an oily bedhopper. In death, he was dismissed by the press as a worthless playboy. But the inquest revealed these descriptions to be wholly untrue.
He loved to make movies. He liked that ability to make movies. That was his chosen profession.
The other good thing that came out of the inquest, why it was successful, is that it cleared Dodi's name. The evidence was overwhelming about the kind of guy he was. Not a playboy, actually. Straightforward, really caring, sensitive, funny man, and not a shit.
He was smart, Dodi. He understood everything about his father's profession and his profession. He told me on so many occasions, I want to run a studio. I want to have a studio of my own.
Dodi first showed his cinematic talent in 1981 as executive producer of the Oscar-winning film Chariots of Fire.
But Chariots of Fire, think of any British movie, have 4 Oscars in the same time.
So it's ostensibly a film about a Jew taking on the establishment.
That's right. I mean, the racism, you know, again. And this was unbelievable way of thinking that he had the idea.
Following the crash in 1997, there was an outpouring of grief for Diana in the press. But the media virtually ignored Mohammed Al Fayed's devastation over the loss of his son, Dodi.
I've seen him crying, telling me how...
They did. Like, that's the thing, as I remember, and I've said already in this, his death got lost there. His death got lost in Princess Diana's. Because of how high profile she was, because of the background, because of everything we're talking about here, and the history and everything that was going on with the royal family. Again, it's the royal family of England. So the most famous family in the country, and his death really did get lost in it all, and so did the suffering of Al Fayed. And it wasn't until later on when Al Fayed was sort of coming out and saying it was murder and stuff. But this man went through hell, and he suffered in silence in a way, because the media didn't give 2 single shits about him or his son. It was all about Princess Diana. And again, there was also the driver of the car lost his life as well, Henry Paul. And the bodyguard, I believe, died as well, I think. I'm not sure if he was alive. It was reported in the earlier video that in the crash he was alive in the car. So I'm not quite sure what happened to him, but there was more than Princess Diana died on that day. And again, everything that's saying here is true. He totally forgot about Dodi Fayed in all of this.
He shared a bed with Dodi every day of his life from 2 to 13, after his mother left. When you hear things like that, you know how close they were.
Despite lasting 6 months and claiming to be an in-depth investigation, the inquest failed to find answers to many basic questions regarding Henri Paul. If he really was a chronic alcoholic, this would have been diagnosed during the stringent medical examination he underwent 3 days before the crash while renewing his pilot's license. But he passed the medical with flying colours. So why wasn't the doctor who gave him a clean bill of health called to the inquest or ever interviewed by the police? Why did Britain's top policeman, Lord Stevens, tell Henri Paul's parents in 2006, in front of other policemen who kept a written record of the conversation, that their son was definitely not drunk?
He asserted that Henri was not drunk on the evening of the accident and that he was driving at a lower speed than indicated in the French proceedings.
That is totally what Mr. Stevens told us.
Yet 6 weeks later, Lord Stevens published a report claiming that Henri Paul was drunk. So, who was lying, Lord Stevens or Lord Stevens? After the crash, the police searched Henri Paul's apartment twice.
2 searches were made of Henri Paul's home by the French police. More alcohol was recorded as discovered on the second search than on the first.
The first time, all the police found was an unopened bottle of champagne and a quarter bottle of martini, which hardly supports the claim that he was an alcoholic. So the police returned a few days later. And, would you believe it, this time they claimed to have found enough alcohol to stock an entire bar. Beer, wine, Ricard, bourbon, vodka, port, champagne, cassis, Pinot...
There is no obvious explanation for this.
Well, the obvious explanation is that it's all been planted there in between, and to make it look like this guy was an alcoholic, even though it was kind of proved later down the line that the blood tests, and it's been said in this previously, the blood tests done were not the blood of Henri Paul, because the carbon monoxide levels in his blood were far too high. So it all just smacks of, again, and you've got to remember who you're dealing with here, and the people that have the power and all you've got to do is go into someone's flat and put a load of drink in there. Do these people have the power to do that? Very much so. So I mean, the guy's saying here it's a mystery, but it is a mystery, but it's also kind of obvious what's happened at the same time.
You must consider whether there are any sinister implications.
Some might say that, on the contrary, there is a very obvious explanation, and that its implications are very sinister indeed. The inquest heard undisputed evidence of Henri Paul's links to the French Secret Services, the Direction de la Surveillance du Territoire, and to Britain's MI6.
I just remember reading this file and thinking it was interesting that, first of all, they had a Frenchman working for MI6, because it's actually quite rare to find someone who is French who are prepared to work for MI6, because they quite often don't. And secondly, because I'm a pilot myself, I remember this particular person having an interest in flying.
So why did the coroner tell the jury in his summing up that Henri Paul had no links to the security services? Henri Paul's bank accounts show he received a total of 350,000 French francs of unexplained income during the final months of his life, mostly from cheques. Why didn't the inquest establish who had written those cheques, or examine the transactions made on Henri Paul's 5 credit cards, or allow the jury to see his mobile phone records? Why did Henri Paul go missing from the hotel for 7 minutes at 10:36? Was he meeting an accomplice in the Place Vendôme? What about the gesture that Henri Paul made outside the Ritz moments before driving off in the Mercedes? Was it a signal to an accomplice? If the inquest had failed to answer one or two of these simple questions, you might put it down to incompetence. But its failure even to ask many of them can only have happened because the authorities already knew the answers and wanted to keep them hidden. Henri Paul was not drunk and was working for the Secret Services on the night that he died.
In 1980, there was a tour.
Advert. Yeah, so, again, what was that signal when he come out to there? Who was he waving at? What was he up to? But he did signal somebody and something, so, again, what was but he's been through under the bus. That's the beauty of it, with whatever he was doing and whoever he was working for, whatever he was up to. In the aftermath and his death, he's been through right under the bus, claimed he was an alcoholic, which his parents disputed. And even were told by, as it said, that the policeman that he wasn't drunk. Then later the policeman claimed he was drunk, and the parents even went into court and disputed and said that he'd already told them that he wasn't drunk. So again, it all just stinks to high heaven, doesn't it? It absolutely stinks to high heaven, in every way, shape or form, to be honest. And this is the beauty of it. Like, until you kind of watch this documentary, you never really know how the inquest went because you weren't told at the time. We were just told the paparazzi killed that princess. When in reality, that's not what the inquest said. The inquest never said that, and we didn't get to hear all the shit show that the inquest had become, basically. It was all kept quiet. So let's crack on.
68. The only senior representative of the royal household to appear at the inquest was Sir Robert Fellows, the Queen's private secretary. On day 68, while under oath, he had the following interchange with Michael Mansfield. Were you on holiday at the time? I was on holiday from somewhere around the first week of August. Until? The week after the death of the Princess and Mr. Al-Fayed. And I went back to Balmoral on the following Sunday, I think, after the funeral. So, would it be fair to say that you were not, in fact, therefore, at the palace or nearby when all of this was happening? I was at the palace, certainly, until the end of July. Fellows unequivocally told the inquest that he was on holiday for the entire period before and after Diana's death, and did not return to work until after her funeral. Now, let's move to January 2011, and the publication of the diary of Tony Blair's press secretary, Alastair Campbell. 31st August. At about 4 a.m., I got a flavour of the royal establishment's approach when I had a conference call with Robert Fellows. You know about Diana, do you? She's dead. It was all very matter-of-fact. 1st of September, meeting at the Lord Chamberlain's office, attended by Robert Fellows. 2nd of September, 10 a.m. Fellows and I had a discussion. 3rd of September. Fellows called early. 4th of September. I had another discussion with Fellows. 5th of September. Fellows said we had all worked well together. Far from being on holiday, as he had claimed under oath, Fellows was at the very centre of Diana's funeral arrangements, overseeing her burial throughout the week. Fellows was the man that Diana had described to friends as one of the three names that I fear. He hates me. He will do anything to get me out of the royals. Sir Robert Fellows was made a lord in 1998.
There's another one rewarded with a lordship. So, yeah. In the event that I am reincarnated, I would like to return as a deadly virus in order to contribute something to solve the overpopulation. And this is actually a statement made by the Duke of Edinburgh. And I've talked before about that the world's overpopulated, and it's not something that I believe. It's something that the people in charge, the bigwigs, the people at the top, the Elon Musks and the Donald Trumps and the Putins and the leaders of the world, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, you name it, all the people who really run the world, it's their belief there is too many people on this planet. So, and this again, the royal family is part of that elitist 1% section of people, and that's what they believe. So you've got to watch out. This is why you've got to, with COVID, you've got to watch out when all this crap comes about, because there's people out there that openly believe the world is overpopulated. So yeah, keep your eyes peeled.
This little boy is called Philip. His full name is Philip Schleswig-Holstein Sonderburg Glucksburg, and he grew up in Germany. He was raised amongst his Nazi in-laws, some of whom later became high-ranking members of the SS. His Nazi relatives then sent him to this school in southern Germany, where he studied for a while under the Nazi curriculum. Philip later recalled that there was much heel-clicking and shouts of Heil Hitler were compulsory. And here's Philip, in Darmstadt, in the heart of Germany, in November 1937, attending a family funeral for some of his Nazi in-laws. Marching in front of a Sieg-heiling crowd, this is Philip, next to Christoph, his SS brother-in-law, and Philip, his Nazi stormtrooper brother-in-law. Imagine if a man with a past like this had somehow ended up marrying into British aristocracy.
And he did, and it's not as much covered up now as it has been, I believe, now, especially now he's dead. It's a bit like Jimmy Savile. But yeah, this guy was massive links to the Nazis, German heritage. Brothers were Nazi SS officers, as he showed you there. Sister was married to to warrant one of them, and believe that was her funeral. She died in a plane crash. And yeah, he married the Queen, and um, I mean, we all, again, I've been learning about the war. You know what I mean? The Second World War and the Nazis and Hitler, and he was in effect brought up by them. I mean, he would never claim to be on their team, obviously, because of what happened. The Nazis lost, but it's very suspicious. It's very suspicious. The fact that the Queens, they're all German, you know what I mean? That's the beauty of it, that it's the British royal family, but they're all German, in effect.
Well, he did. And as we know, he got first prize. He became the Duke of Edinburgh, also known as Prince Philip, after marrying Princess Elizabeth.
Yeah, and they called him like the Duke of Edinburgh because he's German Nazi, and like he's, you know what I mean? They're trying to hide who he was and his name and everything. And Duke of Edinburgh, I mean, he's always been known as that from the day till this day forth. You know what I mean? What the hell's he got to do with Scotland and Edinburgh? Nothing.
The future Queen of England.
I think I'm going to roll with Blake.
And they have adverts on this, innit? Grifting away over Diana's death here. Grifting like Marvin's doing it too. Pause. Hold on, let's turn it back up. I'm not a fan of the adverts, as you may notice.
British lawyers have warned us of 87 legal issues concerning this film. Several of those warnings concern the following interview.
I think Prince Philip is somebody who is devoid of any internal sense of right and wrong. So deep down, he
was a strange character, to be honest, but it's hidden, but many a time he said things that the public norm it's not the way that society was, and it showed the signs of a very old thinking kind of man in the old ways. And you believe the Queen to be the same, and she was married to him, and she put up with it, and you know what I mean. So again, the royals probably aren't what we think they are, or aren't what we think they were. You know what I mean? They don't appear to be nice people, but as the royal family of the country, it's painted like they are. But to me, I don't think they are.
He cares nothing about anybody else. He regards everybody else as potentially a threat. He is completely selfish. And that is very like Fred West or any other psychopathic individual.
Oliver James is one of Britain's leading clinical psychologists. Yet lawyers told us that we could not include his professional diagnosis of Prince Philip in this film. So we looked for the current medical definition of psychopathy and discovered that most psychopaths are not convicted criminals but function normally in society. We also found that psychopaths tend to gravitate towards highly paid professions, such as the legal profession and, oh dear, us, filmmakers. Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip have traditionally been presented to the public as role models for the rest of society. But why?
Certainly, I mean, Philip's been in half...
Because they've got to sell them to the public, because ultimately, if the public don't want them, there's a lot more public than there is the royal family. And if you turn on them and they end up at the gates with baying for blood, these people are doomed for, and they have to run away out of the country, a bit like they did out of Greece. So you've got to keep the public on board, is ultimately the aim of the game here. And this is what I was saying before about the Queen knighting people for their services, because you've got to keep the people on board. The minute the people turn on the royal family and you get the majority turn on them, they're done for you. So it's all about keeping these guys, that we need them, that they're good for tourism, that they're nice people, and you know what I mean. That's what it's all about. That's been the lie for as long as all of us have been alive, and probably our parents and grandparents. That has been the game. And if you watch The Crown, again, The Crown, it's not allowed to completely destroy it because it's done in conjunction with them in a way, but you can see in the background watching The Crown of like, well, it's not told like it really happens. That's the beauty of The Crown. It's a dramatization, but it's probably a lot worse than what the Crown represents, because these people, the problem with The Crown is you can't miss out stuff about the history of the royal family because it happened and it's known. So he tries to paint them in a good light, but again, it's, for me, they're not nice people. and they never have been, and that's the game, keeping us stupid to what these people are really like, so we don't get them out of power. I'll leave it there.